So I came across this article in the Wall Street Journal when it's talking about how these office owners are struggling with high vacancy rates. And even though the companies that occupy these offices are having more stricter return to office policies, a lot of these buildings are still empty, right? And you got a lot of companies like, obviously Jamie Dimon, CEO of Chase, he was talking about how, people need to come back to the office. You also had the Amazon owner, Andy Jassy, issuing warnings for those that wanted to work remote, that didn't want to come back to the office. He issued a warning, saying that maybe this may not be the place for you, or all types of things of discouraging, people to come back to the office. So, a lot of these companies are making it known that they want people to come back to the office, but despite the warnings, people are still not showing up. People are just like, either leaving their jobs and finding another one that does offer work from home, or they're just not showing up. They'll probably come maybe 2 days a week, maybe 3 days a week, or whatever. Or they'll just still work from home. So a lot of these companies are putting in policies and making coming up with disciplinary actions for those that aren't showing up. But like I said, people just still aren't showing up. Either they're quitting or they're just not showing up. And I think for a lot of people, I think most people, a lot of people that are getting back to the work, getting back to the office, because I think a lot of companies obviously are implementing the hybrid model, where they probably work at least 3 days a week. But these companies want to, start off with 3 days a week and then hopefully probably eventually get to 5. But I think for now, a lot of people are putting in the hybrid model where, let's say, they just come 3 times a week. And I think what people are doing is they're choosing, according to this article, they're choosing, Monday and Fridays are the days where they're skipped, right? They'll take the days off. Because let's be real, everybody hates coming to work on a Mondays, right? Like you have the weekend and then everybody dreads that Monday where you got to go back into work. And then of course Friday, that's the start of the weekend. So people choose these days where they choose to just skip out. And they'll just come Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But I think and I think a big reason for this is obviously because employees feel they have the leverage, right? Obviously, they have a lot of jobs out there and they don't have a lot of people to fill those jobs. So people, there's a labor shortage where people feel like, we understand that you guys need the workers. You have a labor shortage, so we feel like we have the leverage. So if I don't feel like coming into work, if I feel like I want to work from home, then you have to adhere to that, because clearly a lot of people are comfortable with the whole work from home experience. Like even for myself, I work from home. Like it's like not having to deal with traffic, not having to deal with having to commute to work is a huge burden that I don't have to deal with. And a lot of people like that experience, especially with the pandemic. People got comfortable doing that, and you can't blame them, right? Some people feel that they're more effective, more productive working from home. Even though there's studies that probably, depending on what study you read, there's some studies that say people are less productive working from home, and there's studies that say people are more productive. So it depends on who's writing the article and what agenda they have. So, but those that are working from home, they feel like they're more productive. They feel like they're more effective. They're peace. They have more peace being able to just work from home, not having to deal with the commute. And you can't blame them. Being able to work from home is such a privilege that a lot of people don't have. And I think another thing is that, even though these companies are saying that they're going to put in, disciplinary actions, I think for what people are noticing is they're not really enforcing it. They're saying these things, but they're not really enforcing it. But you never know, because, a lot of these employees, your managers could be, keeping up with your attendance. And maybe, let's say, if you're trying to get, try to get advancement in your job, you may get passed over, right, for that promotion. So that's just something you might want to keep in mind. But I think for a lot of people that they're seeing that it's not really being enforced, so they're just saying, I'm just going to work from home and then leave it at that. But what could disrupt this, obviously, like for these employers, especially now, as the weather's getting colder, and now flu season's coming up. Now you got a lot of COVID cases that are popping up, right? So everybody's gonna be wanting the social distancing, and a lot of these companies where you see these vacancies are in big cities like New York, Chicago, like really big cities where you see a lot of these vacancies in these buildings. There's other places as well, but what could impact this is obviously the rise of COVID. If media starts pushing that out, people want to social distance, and not be an excuse for why they can't come to the office. Or a lot of these cities, as well as homelessness and crime, people don't want to deal with that homelessness and crime, so they want to make that commute. Another thing is like cuts in government services and transportation. So obviously, for a lot of people, they have to commute, and if they're cutting these services and there's delays, then it's going to be hard to make that compute. So these are things that could disrupt the whole work from home, the return to office experience. So this is something they have to obviously look out for. Also, but another thing that can also affect is like a weakened economy, right? Like if when companies are making money, they don't really care, right? If they're making money, they don't care like what employees are doing. They're like, hey, we're making money, we don't care about the perks. If you want to work from home, that's cool. But when the economy is weakened and then things are getting tight and they're not making their profits, that's when like these companies want to tighten the belt and say, all right, we need people back in the office, we need to take away these perks, we need people more focused on the job at hand. And these are things that affect it. So but it's just interesting to see like how for a lot of people that they're implementing these tougher return to office policies, but people are still like, you know what, I like the experience, I like the fact that I get to work from home, and I don't want to change it. So let's go to this article in the Wall Street Journal and like see what they're talking about. So it says first the good news of office landlords: a post-Labor Day bump nudged return to office rates in mid-September to their highest level since the onset of the pandemic. Now the bad: office attendance in these big cities is still barely half of what it was in 2019, and company get tough measures are proving largely ineffective at boosting that rate much higher. Indeed, a number of forces, from the prospect of more COVID-19 cases from the fall to a weakening economy, could push the return rate into reverse, property owners and cities officials say. More than before, chief executives at blue chip companies are stepping up in efforts to fill their workspace. Facebook, parent Meta platforms, Amazon, and JP Morgan Chase are among the companies that have recently vowed to get tougher on employees who don't show up. In August, Meta told employees they could face disciplinary action if they regularly violate new workplace policy. So like I said, a lot of these companies are, obviously the big companies are trying to get people back to work, and they're issuing these warnings for those that want to work from home. So, but obviously a lot of people are like, you know what, that doesn't change the fact that I still want to work from home. So like I said, depending on your leverage or depending on what value you bring to that company, you probably can get away with it. But right now, based on the labor market, it seems like a lot of these employees have the leverage in saying, you know what, labor is tight, so you need me more than you need the labor. So I'm just going to continue to work from home. So it says, but these actions haven't yet moved the national return rate needle much, and a majority of companies remain content to allow employees to work at least part-time remotely despite the tough talk. Most employees go into offices during the middle of the week, but floors are sparsely populated on Mondays and Fridays. In Chicago, some September days had a return rate of over 66%, but it was below 30% on Fridays. In New York, it ranges from about 25 to 65%, according to Castle Systems, which tracks security card swipe. So like I said, it's primarily happening in a lot of these big cities like Chicago, New York, where you see a lot of people are just not returning back to the office. So it says overall, the average rate of return in the 10 U.S. cities tracked by Castle Systems matched that recent high of 50.4% of 2019 levels for the week ended September 20th, though it slid a little below half of the following week. Disappointing return rates are another blow to office owners who are struggling with vacancy rates near record highs. The national office average vacancy rose to 19.2% last quarter, just below the historical peak of 19.3% in '91, according to Moody's Analytics. So it says business leaders in New York, Detroit, Seattle, Atlanta, Houston, interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, said they have seen only slight improvements in sidewalk activity and attendance in office buildings since Labor Day. Feels a little fuller, but at the margin, said Sandy Burra, chief executive of Detroit Business Group. Lax enforcement of return to office rules is one reason employees feel they can still work from home. At roundtable business discussion in Houston last week, only one of the 12 companies that attended said it would enforce the return office policy in performance reviews. So like I said, they're a little lax when it comes to their policies, and people are taking advantage of that. So it says many cities are contending that increase in homelessness and crime. San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., which are struggling with these problems, are among the lowest return to office cities in the Castle system. About 90% of members surveyed by the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce said that the city couldn't recover until homelessness and public safety problems are addressed. So like I said, man, there's a lot of reasons for why people are coming up, why they don't want to return to the office. obviously you got the homelessness, you got COVID, you got transportation, and a lot of people are saying, you know what, these are reasons why, among other reasons why they just don't want to come back to office. But one thing you need to really think about, especially when it comes to the negative of work from home, because obviously the positive is being able to not have to deal with the commute, being able to just wake up and just go to work. But the negatives is obviously culture, right? That's for the company, right? Culture is a big thing for companies. They help, they obviously they feel that helps the company grow. But another thing is, especially for the individual, is isolation, like just not being around people. Like even for myself, like working from home, that you just kind of miss being able to speak to those around you. I mean, I can deal with it. I've been dealing with it for a while, but for a lot of people, they've dealt with that isolation. They've dealt with that loneliness, not being around people, and that affects a lot of people's mental health. So that's something that you got to like assess for yourself, and it's something that you can deal with. Even though there are so many benefits from working from home, you do have to deal with just that loneliness of just being the only, you're at your desk and there's no one there. Some people like that because they're like, they don't want to speak to their coworkers, and for them it's a great situation. But that's just something for a lot of people that that's struggling with that whole mental aspect. It's just, you got to deal with the isolation and just being by yourself, right? And at home, not being able to talk to anyone. So yeah, so let me know how you feel about that. What are your feelings about working from home and having to go back to the office? Leave your comments down in the section below. Hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. Right? So guys, take care and have a good one. Later.